Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat, 'no. Muli ako po si, Dr. San Pedro, co-convenor ng Coalition for People's Right to Health. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat ng nanonood, sa ating, panibago na namang, ah, para sa linggong ito na webinar nating pinamagat ng, Raise the Bar, ang COVID isasyon ng Serbisyong Pangkalusugan sa panahon ng pandemya. So, nakita po natin 'no, nagkaroon po tayo ng mga dating diskusyon. Ngayon naman po, tingnan naman po natin yung tungkol sa ano na po ba ang nagbago sa sistemang pangkalusugan natin sa panahon nitong pandemya. Siyempre nakikita natin, nung pumasok yung COVID-19, nagsimula sa atin nung, dulo ng Enero o kaya ng Pebrero pa lang, doon natin nakita no, na talagang nag-start na magkaroon ng COVID-19 at yung paghahanda sa COVID-19 sa ating bansa. Pero syempre, nakita natin habang tumatagal, nagkaroon po ng public health emergency pagdating ng Marso, at naghahabol talaga tayo mula noon na maitigil yung pag-akyat no, ng COVID-19. Pero kung titingnan natin, yung nabalita nga kahapon, tayo po ay umabot ng 31,000 at nagkaroon ng 1,150 cases. So yung 1,150, siya po ang pinakamataas sa na naitala no, na bilang ng mga kaso ng COVID-19 sa ating bansa. No? So talagang makita natin malaki pa ang kailangan nating habulin para dito sa pagsagot natin sa COVID-19. Kaya pa naman nandito po tayo, syempre para ma-discuss natin paano po ba mapapaganda at masasagot yung usapin ng COVID-19 habang tinitingnan natin kamusta na ba yung lagay ng sistemang pangkalusugan natin, hindi lang para sa COVID-19, no? Hindi lang yung para pagsagot no doon sa usapin ng pandemya, kundi yung mga mas malalaking mga serbisyo na nabibigay sa sistemang pangkalusugan. Kasi alam naman natin na ang mga essential services, sabi nga ng World Health Organization, dapat hindi tumitigil kahit na nandito tayo sa pandemya kasi ito yung talagang nagsisigurado na maayos yung antas ng kalusugan at pamumuhay ng ating mga mamamayan. No? So kasama siya dun sa ating karapatan sa kalusugan. Kaya nandito ang Coalition for People's Right to Health para mapag-usapan yung mga ganitong issue at mapaunlak no, yung ano ba talaga yung dapat na mangyari para sa ating sistemang pangkalusugan. No? So, i-discuss ko lang, no, ulit pinamagatang Raise the Bar ang ating series. So ano po ibig sabihin ng Raise the Bar para po din sa mga bagong nanonood lang sa Facebook at sa YouTube. Sige, ipakita lang po natin yung sa ang aking slide. Sige. So, di ba narinig po natin ngayon, no? Puro tayo flatten the curve, no? Paulit-ulit yung sinasabi natin na kailangan natin i-flatten o ipapatag yung ating mga curve, no? Yung graph no ng ating COVID-19. So, sa ngayon, no, paulit-ulit natin kasi nakikita yung ganun. Kaya syempre ang panawagan po ng Coalition for People's Right to Health ay hindi lang po tayo nakatugon no doon sa usapin ng flattening the curve, kundi yung tinatawag naming raising the bar, no? So kung titingnan natin, 'di ba, yung doon sa flattening the curve, kung titingnan niyo po yung graph, meron po tayong mga bilang ng kaso. So, syempre yung sa atin, hindi lang po dapat natin tinitingnan yung flattening the curve, no? Kailangan natin lagpasan 'yon. Kailangan tingnan natin yung usapin ng pagpapataas, no, nung sistemang pangkalusugan. No, kasi siyempre ang nakikita kasi natin, no, yung paulit-ulit kasing pinapakita sa atin, kung wala daw pong mangyayari, ganito daw po ang itsura, no, ng graph natin, no? So, yung napakataas, no, ganito yung nangyayari daw kung walang ginagawa yung ating pamahalaan at ang ating mga mamamayan, no, na mataas yung bilang ng mga kaso at na-overwhelm, nalalagpasan yung healthcare system, no, nagiging full siya, nagiging puno, no, na-overwhelm ang ating healthcare system. Pero kung ang sinasabi daw po initially, no, kapag nagkaroon talaga ng social distancing, ng hand washing at talagang sumunod, yung sinasabi nga pong hindi maging pasaway ang ating mga mamamayan, posible daw po na hindi natin maitawid no doon sa linya o yung bar na nagpapakita na yung kulang lang ang kaya ng ating sistemang pangkalusugan. Pero syempre, ang tanong din natin dito, oo, isang bagay nga po no, na kailangan nga talagang sumunod ng ating mamamayan dun sa mga social distancing, sa hand washing, sa self-quarantine. Pero alam natin no, na kailangan din natin pataasin yung antas ng ating sistemang pangkalusugan. No? Syempre, kailangan natin questionin, bakit nga ba siya patag lang, no? Siyempre, iba naman yung pangangailangan ng kalusugan ng ating mamamayan habang tumatagal ang panahon. At siyempre sa Pilipinas na medyo napabayaan ang ating sistemang pangkalusugan, ay may mga pagkakataon na hindi lang siya patag, no? Kaya siya patag kasi hindi nabibigyan ng maayos na budget. Pero ang kailangan natin at ang panawagan natin ay talagang sana maipataas pa natin, no? I-raise natin yung bar, itaas natin yung ating pagpapahalaga sa sistemang pangkalusugan, yung pagpapahalaga natin sa mismong kalusugan ng ating mamamayan, yung pagdagdag natin ng testing capacity, yung pagdagdag ng mga manggagawang pangkalusugan, at syempre yung basically yung antas ng health services sa ating bansa. No? Pero yung COVID, dahil nga sa COVID-19, napabago ito. No? At unfortunately, bagamat gusto natin sana mag-raise ng bar, ay may mga pagkakataon na hindi pa nare-raise. No? O kailangan pa talaga na i-raise siya dahil hindi pa siya umaakyat. No? Medyo pantay siya o nalalagpasan na siya. No? Maraming mga lugar na yon, kahit sa Cebu at ibang bahagi ng Metro Manila, na talaga no-overwhelm ng ating healthcare system. No? Kaya nandito ngayon, sa ating diskusyon sa ngayon, no? Kasi pakita ko lang po, no, na nagkaroon kasi ng isang article po, no, nilabas po ng dalawang physician at anthropologist, no, si Dr. Gideon Lasco at ako, si Dr. San Pedro, nung sa Philippine Daily Inquirer noong June 7, 2020, ang isang article tungkol sa COVIDization, no, COVIDization ng healthcare, na kung paano po ba nagbabago at ano yung mga threat sa ating healthcare system dahil nga nagbago dito sa COVID-19, no? Nanggaling po ito yung doon sa isang article, no, na ginawa ni Madhu Karpay sa Canada, na siya po ay gumawa ng article tungkol sa COVIDization ng academic research, no, na lahat ng mga research ngayon ay napupunta na sa usapin ng COVID. At in-apply namin ito na para i-apply ano na po ba yung nangyayari sa ating healthcare system na na-COVIDize o talagang nag-focus sa COVID-19 at napaano na kaya, no, napabayaan ba o naantala yung pagbibigay ng essential services, no? So makakasama natin sa araw na ngayon, ito po, bali ako po isa sa mga nagsulat nitong commentary at kasama din po natin ang isa pang co-author po natin dito, si Dr. Gideon Lasco, no? Siya po ay nandito din po sa ating mga kakapanayan din natin at magre-react siya sa ating diskusyon mamaya po. No? Tapos meron po tayong dalawang makakapanayam ngayon na dalawa pong naglilingkod sa serbisyong pangkalusugan ng mamamayan. No? So magsimula muna tayo, na-introduce ko muna ang una nating speaker. So sila po ay parehong, lahat po ng makakasama natin at makakapanayam natin ngayon ay mga doktor, no, na naglilingkod sa kalusugan ng mamamayan. No? So una, ipakilala ko lang din muna yung ating unang magiging kapanayam ngayon. Siya po ay si Dr. Annie Regina Batangan. Siya po ay kumuha ng undergraduate degree niya sa BS Psychology, graduating magna cum laude sa University of the Philippines, Diliman. And nagtuloy din po siya na mag-aral ng medisina sa University of the Philippines, Manila, College of Medicine. So siya po ang pinakabata sa amin ngayon. Siya ang graduate ng 2019 at nag-serve siya bilang junior faculty sa San Pedro University College of Medicine and bilang isang company physician. So currently, siya po ay isang medical officer sa isang community isolation or community quarantine unit sa Quezon City. So magandang hapon, Dr. Annie. Naka-mute yata.
And sir, hello po. Ayan. Good afternoon po, Sir Josh, Sir Gideon, sa Sir Josh, sa lahat mo na nakikinig sa atin.
Yan. Sige, could you introduce muna?
Okay. So, share lang po muna yung slides ko. So, good afternoon po sa lahat. Ako po si Annie Batangan, isa po akong doktor na nag-serve ngayon sa community facility dito sa Quezon City. Maraming salamat po na sa CPRH for arranging po this discussion and inviting us po to share our experiences. So ngayon po, ang topic po natin ay ang COVID-isasyon ng Serbisyong Pangkalusugan sa panahon ng pandemya. Ngayon po, behind the line. So kami mga frontliners po ang mag-share po ngayong araw. So, before po ako magsimula, magbibigay lang po ako ng brief background on the COVID-19 community isolation facilities. So, first po, medyo technical lang po, pero our mandate came from the joint memorandum from our Department of Health and Department of Interior and Local Governance, released po last April 15, 2020. So, ang memorandum na ito po ay title na Guidelines on Local Isolation and General Treatment Areas for COVID-19 Cases and the Community-Based Management of Mild COVID-19 Cases. So under po sa memo na to was the creation of the Community Isolation Units we're hearing now. These are DOH certified publicly or privately owned non-hospital facilities set up po in coordination with or by the national government or local government units to serve as quarantine facilities for the COVID-19 cases. Based po pa rin sa DOH guidelines. So, an example po of this isolation units is the Ligtas COVID Center. So, a Ligtas COVID Center or the local isolation and general treatment areas for COVID-19 cases, ito po ay mga community managed na mga pasilidad kung saan ang mga pasyente na tinataguri ang may contact, suspect, probable at confirmed cases po ng COVID-19 na may mild na mga sintomas na ang mga bahay nila o kanilang mga home environment ay hindi po kakayanin ng physical distancing. For example, medyo masikip po at hindi po kakayanin na may sariling kwarto, sariling CR, etc. Pwede po silang temporarily sa community quarantine or isolation. So, link po ang mga community isolation na ito sa mga healthcare institutions. Just in case po na kailangan mag-refer at i-manage po ng mas mataas na health facility level. So, ako po, personally po, I'm working for an isolation facility nga po dito sa Quezon City. And we're linked to the healthcare institution housed inside UP Diliman, which is the University Health Service. Gusto ko lang pong i-share kung paano nagkaroon ng Kandungang Palma or our community isolation unit in UP Diliman. So, Palma Hall po is one of the oldest buildings in UP Diliman and served as, kumbaga, kanlungan of the mind for numerous generations. Now, as part of UP's response to the pandemic, we're now using Palma Hall as kandungan to the body and to the community. So, our facility po was brought about by the need for a quick response to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a need for additional spaces for quarantine and isolation since more and more people were being infected and majority naman po of those infected, as proven by studies, are either asymptomatic or mild in presentation and would not need the level of or the facilities of a hospital and may be isolated in community facilities such as ours. So, the need for these facilities is also rooted to the fact that it will allow hospitals po to be our last line of defense. We wanted to reserve our hospitals and their beds for those who have severe cases, yung mga malala po ang pakikiramdam na, yung mga malala ang karamdaman na, at yung mga nangangailangan talaga ng mga pasilidad ng isang ospital. So, what we're treading right now is a hazy line. So, it's not, we're not in a clear-cut situation right now. It is just a national university's response to the pandemic, but it's an effort nonetheless, even with all the possible issues and problems that that it can face. So kumbaga tumaya lang po yung UP dito to help in the response. And we're trying to navigate in this haziness despite the limitations and instability to create space for the people who may be missed out in the regular flow of services. So let me now move on to the changes I experienced in my work as a healthcare worker. So before everything po, as introduced kanina, I served as a faculty member and a company physician before the pandemic started. My focus then was not is academics and in my practice, the wellness and preventive medicine for the company's employees. However, I noticed that as time goes by, and the pandemic started, the focus already shifted to infection control. Currently, we're now preoccupied with identifying people who are infected, isolating them, managing them, and hopefully helping them recover. So without pandemic affecting thousands of Filipinos, understandable naman po na a lot of the attention has been turned to COVID. Infectious disease, ang ang napapansin lang po namin is that infectious diseases we had years ago, for example, tuberculosis seems to have taken a backseat habang nagdi-deal tayo with the new infectious diseases which is COVID-19. So following this change in focus, in our practice, our guidelines and algorithms when managing patients all changed. Yung decision making din po namin as physicians are affected, and we must relearn some of the hard and fast rules na we were so used in utilizing. Isa pa pong epekto ng COVID, ng shift ng focus sa COVID-19 ngayon is that we have to manage COVID along with diseases in a single patient. So for example, may patient po tayo na dati nang may hypertension at may diabetes, tapos nagkaroon siya ng COVID. Isa po siyang dagdag na challenge ngayon, how to manage the existing diseases of these people along with the new infectious disease. So in a lot of factors po now is coming into play, and I think we will discuss some of them later. Personally po, what is actually very challenging for me as a doctor is since it's a novel virus and a lot is unknown regarding its disease, this disease and the infection, we rely on research already released right now. Pero information right now po is ever-changing. And as healthcare workers, we have to keep up with so much new information and critically assess if these studies are valid and their conclusions are sound. Recommendations for patient management right now have also changed drastically since the early months of this year. So makikirinig po natin sa mga balita yung mga original na mga sinasuggest na mga posibleng gamot for COVID, at yung mga iba sa mga ito ay tinest na po using experiments and in practice. Then after some months later, babawiin yung drug na yon from testing because we experienced difficulties and also adverse effects in patients. So ganun po yung kumbaga kinakaharap namin as healthcare workers ngayon. So yun nga po yung mga changes na naobserbahan ko and will be my basis to tackle some of my next points. So I just want to focus po dun sa shift of focus natin to COVID. Since a lot of shifted already the focus on COVID, our work also as healthcare workers have followed suit. In the process po, as I said earlier, we have tended to overlook some diseases which had been endemic in our country. So, for an example, tuberculosis is still there. Right now, we're entering the rainy season. No doubt na nandyan pa rin po ang dengue at leptospirosis. Also to mention our non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and hypertension and other public health concerns are always there and still a problem nowadays. Another is um, another thing I noticed is with the presentation of COVID, in practice being like the common cold. So ang usually po na mga sintomas ng mga pasyente na may COVID ay ubo, sipon, sore throat, masakit ang katawan, may lagnat. Minsan po ay nagiging unang differential o unang sakit na naiisip natin sa isang pasyente na ganito ang presentasyon ay COVID. And may tendency po tayo na kailangan maalis muna yun, ma-rule out. Kailangan ma-prove muna natin na hindi COVID ang sakit ng taong ito bago natin ma-consider ang ibang mga sakit. As I said po earlier, yung mga ibang sakit na meron tayo dati, meron pa rin sila ngayon. So, posible pa rin silang maging cause ng mga sakit ng mga ating mga pasyente. So personally po, I have found myself in this trap also sometimes. And I have to be continuously cautious of this. And my next point po is I came to realize na as the world zeroed in on COVID, it became apparent that the Philippines, our country, has lack of healthcare workers. They were producing thousands of nurses and doctors every year, pero insufficient pa rin po ang number ng mga healthcare workers sa ating mga hospitals and community facilities. Kung narinig niyo po sa news, madaming mga naging hiring of healthcare workers. And also, even to the point na they're allowing students, medical students who finished the first 4 years of medical school to already practice even though wala pa pong license because we need more people as healthcare workers during this pandemic. And lastly, napansin ko din po na it highlighted to me as a physician that no matter if you took up specialty training or not, we're all general practitioners at the end of the day, and we're expected to be able to assess and manage anything that comes in our clinic, emergency room, or facility. On the other side of the point, I think hindi naman po lahat negative ang mga nakuha natin dun sa pag-shift natin ng focus to COVID. I would also like to be hopeful and saw the hopefully some positive points po in our shift. So one of these is the prominence of health issues in our society nowadays. Mas napapansin na po ang mga health concerns ngayon, and a certain focus din po to be highlighted is the focus on frontliners' health. So undeniably naman po, frontliners are the ones most exposed, not just to COVID but all diseases. And the health status of our healthcare workers and other frontliners and its importance was highlighted due to this pandemic. Kasi ang dami na po, overwhelming na yung number of healthcare workers being infected. So some examples na po na just to show how our frontliners' health is also taken into high consideration currently is, for example, we have a change in work schedule na po for most hospitals. So some would have 7 days of duty and then 14 days off to isolate. There's also provision for personal protective equipment and impose po ito to protect and to minimize yung infection ng ating mga healthcare workers. Next point is na positive from this shift was we saw a multi-sectoral approach to health. We saw in this pandemic that the government and the private sector responded to this pandemic. So it shows us that this can be done. And it's easier to deal with national problems if we work together and if we have a multi-sectoral approach. More close to home po siguro, not in a macro level, but more in a smaller scale was an example na, for example, religious groups and other organizations made shields for our frontliners. I think this is a way where uh, um, different sectors of our society can help um, in this approaching this pandemic. And lastly, what I saw as a positive effect of this shift was we, as constituents of our country, held the government accountable for our health and also for the effects in for our government officials, for example, who would not follow our policies regarding this pandemic. So to cite an example would be Senator Pimentel's issue na pumunta siya dun sa hospital even though there was already contact and he was known to be COVID-19 positive. So we saw how the people responded to this and held our government accountable. So I think I'll here first po the other my other slides are for some other questions for later.
Thank you very much, Dr. Annie. So, I made a mistake pala kanina, no? Hindi ka pala yung youngest. Ang youngest pala yung next speaker natin. Although, technically speaking, ikaw yung youngest in terms of being a doctor. No? So, do you think in any way na-prepare ka ba upon graduating last year na ganito yung haharapin mo all of a sudden?
I think, sir, hindi in terms of psychological and emotional preparation, we're all not prepared for this. We didn't see this coming. We all had our plans for the year. In terms of handling patients, naman po, I think that's we're more or less prepared for that. I think more of the psychological and emotional preparation po yung mas hindi po tayo prepared.
Okay. Sige. Thank you very much, Dr. Annie Batangan. So we'll go back to you in a while. We'll just go to our second speaker. So our second speaker is also, aside from being a doctor, is a nutritionist dietitian, registered nutritionist dietitian, and then he finished his at UP. He finished BS Community Nutrition at UP Diliman, and was also a graduate of the UP College of Medicine in 2016. And then he proceeded to his residency in pediatrics at the Philippine General Hospital and is currently a junior pediatric consultant at Batangan General Hospital. So this is Dr. Jeremiah Torrico, a classmate and a friend. So Dr. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
Sige, thank you very much for dito sa pagpapa-unlock no, sa amin sa CPRH. So just like kay Dr. Annie, so kamusta naman yung work mo as a pediatrician ngayon, and then syempre with all of those yung experience mo rin with regards to pediatric nutrition, how has it really changed no yung what we have been doing, especially what you have done as a pediatrician prior to COVID-19 and then ngayon no as a junior consultant?
Medyo mahirap siyang sagutin kasi bagong pediatrician pa lang ako. Kakatapos ko lang noong December actually. Pero from January until the start of the pandemic, noong mga March, start yung lockdown, I was already working as a junior consultant sa private hospitals. So, in a way, makita ko yung difference.
Sa residency mo?
Malaki yung mga pagbabago. Malaking-malaki yung mga pagbabago. Very emotional yung ride. Later, i-discuss ko why. Pero siguro yung number one na kinakaharap namin ngayon is frustration. Frustration. Pero in a way, hopeful pa din na sana magbago at mag-improve lahat. So ayun, brief background lang about myself. Yes, gaya yung sabi ni Josh, I'm a nutritionist dietitian by profession, but I'm also a doctor. Ang training ko po ay pediatrics, so kami po yung nagbibigay ng serbisyong medikal sa mga batang edad 18 pababa. Ako po ay currently isang junior consultant sa Batangan General Hospital and Medical Center. ito po ay isang pampublikong ospital na tertiary, so ibig sabihin po referral, malaki po siyang ospital na maraming subspecialty. 73 years old na po ang ospital namin, and so far kami yung largest hospital sa Batangan. So yung pag-uusapan, yung i-share ko po sana ngayon ay medyo gagawin ko siyang informal kasi gusto kong maging parang personal siya, since gusto kong i-share yung aking personal experiences not only as a frontliner but also as a public medical doctor in general. So i-discuss ko po how the pandemic changed my nature of work, paano nag-shift yung focus ng healthcare system natin mula sa mga pangkaraniwang sakit, lalo na sa pedya, patungo sa COVID-19. Bibigay ako ng mga konkretong examples na na-experience ko firsthand. Ano yung, kung paano naapektuhan ng pandemya at ng covidisasyon ng serbisyong pampubliko ng kalusugan yung mga kababayan natin, lalong-lalo na sa may hirap na sector. And siguro lastly, magbibigay ako siguro ng suggestions, no, kung paano natin siguro ma-prepare yung sarili natin sa tinatawag nating new normal sa larangan ng pangkalusugang paglilingkod, kung meron man. So, nung nag-start yung pandemic na to, actually, sa totoo lang, hindi ako personally prepared, like every one of you. Since bago yung sakit, no, bago yung virus, wala tayong masyadong alam, frustrating siya in the sense na hindi mo alam kung paano siya i-manage, i-diagnose nung una. So when it all started, sabay siya actually ng pag-start ko as a junior consultant, very confusing dahil sanay ako bilang pediatrician na nag-train sa pampublikong ospital, sanay kami sa mga protocol. So ito yung mga guidelines na sinusunod kapag may ganitong pangyayari. No? Sadly, wala tayong protocols initially, no, nung una, para sa mga ganitong kaso gaya ng COVID-19 kasi bago siya. So very frustrating siya on our part. When I was assigned to be a junior consultant, hindi ko in-expect na magiging pandemic siya. Initially, we were thinking baka makokontrol siya kasi parang SARS, di ba? Before, hindi naman natin siya masyadong naging problem ng early 2000s, unlike sa China and Hong Kong and other areas. So akala ko magiging ganun siya. But when the cases started rising in number, medyo nakakapanik na. Fortunately, may ibang hospitals, no, gaya ng hospital namin, na konti pa lang yung mga kaso, nagsistart na mag-prepare. Pero like everyone else, medyo blindly siya ginagawa. Kasi siguro sabihin natin kahit gaano ka-prepared, no, kung hindi mo talaga alam yung nature ng disease, ang hirap din mag-start. So we were all basing our actions on what other hospitals did outside of the country and within the country, yung mga naka-experience ng ganitong kaso. Nung first time kong mag-work as a doctor na meron ng COVID-19 cases sa hospital namin, ang unang nangyari was there was a noticeable large number of people who resigned, siguro dahil sa panic. So yun yung unang number one. No? Kulang tayo sa healthcare workers in general, particularly hindi lang po sa mga doktor, kundi pati na rin sa mga nurses. And nung dumating yung COVID-19, yung unang naging problem namin actually ay hindi yung COVID-19 itself. No, hindi kami masyadong nagka-problem with the cases, but more of yung manpower. Marami nag-resign ng mga doctors, residents even, na nag-train, and nurses. No? Yung iba dahil sa takot, yung iba dahil takot hindi para mahawa, kundi dahil baka mahawa nila yung families nila. Which is acceptable naman, lalo na if you're a frontliner. Pero ayun, so yun yung number one namin na experience, no? Mass resignation, hindi naman mass resignation. May mga madami-daming nag-resign. And pangalawa, yung pagkapa namin sa kung paano, una, ida-diagnose, and later on, ima-manage yung mga ganitong kaso. Mind you, wala pa, nung time na yun, wala pang konkretong guidelines as to how to diagnose and manage cases. Merong ilang mga guidelines or protocols na sinasuggest yung mga societies natin sa field ng medicine, pediatrics, at infectious diseases. So yung mga, kung ano yung available, sila yung sinusundan namin as much as possible. No? However, nahihirapan pa rin kami kasi hindi talaga siya parang kumbaga hindi kasi siya inaral before. Wala kami totally alam about it. So most of the time when we're managing possible cases, kailangan tatawag ka sa different subspecialties, magko-confer ka ng decisions mo kasi everyone didn't know really much about the disease. So yung isa pang pagbabago na nangyari sa amin. Pangatlo, I think this is the most important one. Maraming services, no? Maraming mga serbisyo sa ospital yung napatigil, na-stop, and at the same time, maraming mga sakit, no? Lalo na sa field ng pediatrics, mga kabataan, yung initially hindi nabigyan ng pansin. So medyo komplikado siya i-discuss pero bigyan ko na lang kayo ng example. Majority ng cases sa pediatrics ay outpatient. Meaning ito yung mga sakit na pwede mong gamutin, pwede mong bigyan ng serbisyo sa clinic lang. Nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, since yung mga clinic natin ay parang delikado silang lugar dahil maraming tao, madaling magkahawahan, na-stop yung operations ng ating mga outpatient clinics. So yung isa sa mga naging problems namin. So maraming mga cases, no, na hindi na nabibigyan ng atensyon, so nagkakaroon ng kumbaga parang nagiging sayang yung services na pwede namin ibigay kasi hindi namin siya mabigay dahil takot tayo sa COVID. So masyadong na-shift yung focus sa COVID-19 initially to a point na yung certain services natin hindi natin nabibigay. Pero eventually, siguro, this might sound different from what Annie experiences, no, sa institution nila, but and other doctors as well sa ibang hospitals. But I just want to say na in our part, in our hospital, to be specific, naging adaptive kasi yung LGU namin and yung hospital. So when we started experiencing mga ganitong problems na masyado nang nakafocus sa COVID, marami ng patients yung hindi na-asikaso because of COVID, nag-step up yung administration, nag-step up yung LGU. I think it's too ideal. I can't say it's perfect, no? Pero I think we can learn from it. What the hospital and the LGU did was that they also started looking into several options on how to provide health services. Sa mga at the end of the day, mas commendable services, initially through teleconsultation, online, and then later on, nagkaroon tayo ng facilities, no? Facilities na nag-cater sa mga non-COVID cases. So pwedeng nating sabihin na masyado siyang ideal, no? Pero I think we can learn from it. To answer yung question if nag-improve ba or nag-worsen yung delivery ng health services nung nagkaroon ng COVID-19. For my experience personally, this is just sharing my own experience. Initially, yes, initially nag-worsen. Gaya nga ng sinabi ko, no, maraming services, simple services, yung hindi nabigyan ng pansin. But then, later on, nagkaroon naman ng tawag dito, initiative from different officials and the hospital administration. So in a way na address naman. But yes, initially nag-worsen siya in the sense na ilan lang yung patient na na-admit kasi ang na-admit lang ay yung mga COVID positive and COVID suspects. So pag hindi COVID, kung unlikely na COVID yung patient, hindi siya na-admit, no? It's a good thing na we have partner hospitals na kung hindi COVID, dun sila napupunta. But ayun, marami pa ring services, lalo na yung subspecialty services na initially ay yung hospital namin, like yung tertiary hospital na lang namin yung nakakabigay ng service, hindi namin na-provide yung services na yun, like yung mga complicated surgeries or mga complicated pediatric cases dahil naging COVID referral center kami. So, yung isa pang example doon ay among the patients na minanage namin, there are certain procedures and services, no, na hindi namin nagagawa. Hindi namin nagagawa kasi may protocol na kailangan sundin. For example, yung pagsasuction ng secretions, no, yung plema ng mga bata, important yan lalo na sa mga baby, sa mga bata kasi hindi nila kayang maglabas ng plema. So it's important to do suctioning, lalo na sa mga bata intubated, nakatubo, nakakonekta sa makina. However, since the start of the pandemic, takot tayo mag-suction because ang pagsasuction ay maaaring lalong maging mag-aerosolize kasi yung virus, yung secretions, meaning mas madali para sa virus yung kumalat pag nag-suction ka. So, ingat na ingat kami at that time for patients na wala pang swab results, hindi pa alam kung positive or negative. Ingat na ingat kami kasi hindi kami makakapag-suction. And may mga certain cases na kawawa yung patient kasi suctioning lang yung makaka-relieve ng condition, no? Sa paghihirap ng bata, but we can't do it because pwede kasi siyang maka-worsen ng COVID. I mean, if COVID yung patient, pwede siyang makahawa. So yung mga ganyung instances. And at the same time, no, meron tayong mga certain conditions na immunocompromised. Ito yung mga mahina yung resistensya na syempre ayaw nating i-admit sa ospital dahil madali silang mas madali para sa kanila na magkaroon ng komplikadong kaso ng COVID-19. So halimbawa ng mga kasong to, yung mga pasyente na may cancer, like leukemia, na nag-chemotherapy. So may mga instances na hindi sila na-admit or kailangang i-transfer pa sa other hospitals na hindi sila kilala para lang mabigay yung chemotherapy. Fortunately, no, recently, nagagawa naman siya ng paraan dahil nakakapag-rent ng other institutions like yung iba, resort, no, kung saan dinadala yung mga quote-unquote clean cases ng mga walang COVID, gaya ng mga cancer patients, at doon binibigay yung services like chemotherapy. Pero yun, initially, nagkakaroon tayo ng difficulty in managing those cases. Yung iba pang instances, I think, would be yung pag-shift ng resources ng hospital. Not only yung human resources, but yung mismong physical, I mean, financial resources ng hospitals. I can't say specific kasi hindi ko naman forte ang finances, but based on my observation, no, malaki yung nagugugol ng hospital para sa COVID-19. Marami yung nagagastos hindi lamang sa PPE, no, kundi pati na rin sa pag-aayos ng mismong physical layout ng hospital kasi kailangan may isolation ka. Kumbaga, lahat ay pinagkagagastusan para maiwasan yung pagkalat ng COVID-19. So, in terms of finances, mukhang nag-shift yung ating investment, no, from providing usual healthcare services to different diseases. Na-focus lang tayo sa pagbibigay ng healthcare services sa COVID-19. Now, do I think na, based on my experience, mas dehado or mas nagkakaroon ng problema yung mga kababayan natin sa poor sector in terms of pag-access or sa pagbibigay sa kanila ng healthcare services, of course, no? Kasi unang-una sa lahat, hindi mahal or hindi mura ang magpagamot in general. Kahit sabihin natin na ang ospital ay libre, ang gamot ay libre, ang laboratorio ay libre, ang pagpunta sa ospital ay hindi. No? Pag-uwi ng pasyente sa bahay, ang pagkain niya hindi. Ang pagkain ng masustansya ay hindi. So maraming factors, no, na dapat i-factor in. And simulat sa pool, dehado na talaga yung mga kababayan natin na nakakaranas ng hirapan. Ngayon, nung dumating yung COVID-19, mas naging dehado sila, I think, ha? Because I've encountered patients, no, na hindi makapunta sa ospital. Ilang araw na nilalagnat, may signs and symptoms ng COVID-19 kahit gusto nila. Dahil wala namang masakyan, bawal ang public transportation, wala silang sariling private vehicle. No? I also encountered a family na for a week, ang kinakain lang ay kanin at bagoong. Kasi daily wage earner yung magulang na single parent. So during the lockdown, walang makain masustansya, walang makain malinis. So yung dalawang anak ay nagkaroon ng sakit, at kailangan ma-admit. So yung mga ganitong cases, nakikita natin na simulat sa pool, nahihirapan na yung mga kababayan nating may hirap, pero lalo silang mas naging vulnerable nung dumating yung COVID-19 dahil naalis sa kanila yung certain advantages, no, na gaya ng public transportation, no, at saka yung trabaho na lalo na for daily wage earners, no, nung simula nung nagka-lockdown, wala nang kinikita. So sobrang lalong naging dehado yung mga kababayan natin to the point na para siyang cycle dahil dahil sa kahirapan, nagkakasakit, pero pag nagkasakit naman, like pag nagkaroon ng COVID-19, mas lalong magkaka-problem with earnings, so lalong magkakasakit. So it's a vicious cycle na kailangan nating bigyan ng pansin. Medyo marami pa sana akong gustong i-share, pero at this point, gusto ko lang sigurong i-share yung how we handled the pandemic or how our LGU and our hospital handled the pandemic. Again, I'm not saying na how we are handling it is perfect or superior to how other hospitals handle the pandemic. But then, I think meron tayong matututunan dun sa kung paano namin siya hinahandle. No? Sa mga problems na inilahad ko kanina, isang magandang solusyon na ginawa, no, sa amin, ginawa ng ospital namin is yung pagkakaroon ng other services for non-COVID patients. Kanina dinidiscuss ni Josh sa introduction, no, na kailangan nating i-raise yung bar. Yung bar na nagsisimbolo ng healthcare capacity natin, kapasidad natin na magbigay ng serbisyo. So tumutukoy ito dun sa mga kama, sa ospital, no, number ng mga nurses, doctors, facilities natin. No. Sa karanasan namin, ang ginawa ng ospital ay nagkaroon siya ng, aside from having partner hospitals na magbibigay serbisyo sa mga pasyenteng hindi COVID, nagkaroon din to ng sariling annex hospital. So sa annex hospital, nandoon yung mga malilinis, quote-unquote, nating kaso or yung mga kaso na non-COVID related. No? So doon nagbibigay pa din yung serbisyo para sa mga bagong panganak, serbisyo para sa mga immunocompromised, no? Sa mga taong may cancer na nagkikimo, sa mga pasyente na kailangan ng kaukulang atensyon pero hindi COVID. So I think maganda siyang investment na ginawa namin dahil in a way, no, na-raise natin yung bar doon kahit papaano, na hindi lang nag-focus yung hospital sa COVID-19. At the same time, nagkaroon din yung hospital namin at yung LGU ng initiative to do mass testing, at least sa level ng healthcare workers. No? When the pandemic started, nagkaroon actually ng surge ng number ng positive cases among healthcare workers sa hospital namin. But what the administration did was we did mass testing. So lahat tinest, ultimo welder na hindi healthcare related, kahit nag-welding lang sa hospital ay tinest, no? Just to ensure or just to track who has the virus and to stop the virus from spreading. So the government invested a lot. No, they bought, I think, 4 RT-PCR machines. They also invested on gene expert machines and cartridges. Very expensive. Pero, very fruitful kasi umabot kami. I think that the last time I checked, 0 cases na sa healthcare workers. No? So that's a good thing. Kasi from almost 80, I think, napababa siya through mass testing and contact tracing. Isa pa yun, contact tracing. Aside, I mean, instead of waiting for the national government's contact tracing, no, the hospital did its own contact tracing. In fact, even as a consultant, no, I was asked to help. So we called patients who tested positive, healthcare workers who tested positive. Tapos tinrace namin kung nasan sila, sino yung mga kasama nila. And minake sure na yung mga taong yon ay well-documented, nabibigyan ng warning kung anong dapat gawin, what to watch out for. No? So, naging helpful siya. Yung isa pa, I think, na magandang matututunan from our experience ay yung constant na adaptation to changes. When I say constant adaptation, every day, no, since again, ang COVID-19 ay something na hindi natin alam totally, no? It's a new disease, new knowledge is being exposed every day regarding COVID-19. Almost every day, meron kaming changes in terms of protocols, no? Before, meron kaming mga areas na hindi pwedeng puntahan, tapos kinabukasan pwede na. Before, may mga bagay kami na pwedeng ibigay, ngayon hindi na. Nag-a-adapt yung hospital sa kung ano yung nakikitang changes, kung ano yung nakikitang demands ng situation. So I think it's something good. And lastly, siguro yung pagiging proactive ng healthcare system. Ako personally, at least I'm speaking for myself, no, I never had a problem in terms of PPEs, handling COVID patients, no. Kasi we have a rule sa hospital na bawal mag-duty kung walang PPE. So the hospital is required to provide PPE. So siguro nandun na din yung political will, no, ng mga taong nasa posisyon, and at the same time yung pagiging proactive not only by the doctors but by the hospital administration itself. So I think it's something that we can learn from, no? So, ayun, so medyo marami na yata ako nasabi, Josh. Baka may questions kayo kasi ayun nga, parang hindi, I don't think my experience kasi is comparable to other hospitals, I guess. Kasi in a way, maganda yung kinakaharap namin ngayon, at least in our hospital. We don't experience problems na nakikita namin sa social media, no? So, baka may questions kayo.
Thank you very much, no, dun sa sharing. As we remember, di ba naalala ko nga lang nun dati, ang Batangan General Hospital is isa sa mga hotspot na ang daming health workers, no, na nagkaroon ng positive. So, there really were changes, no, especially sabi mo nga, 0 cases na tayo sa ngayon, no. So, balik lang natin kay Doc Annie, no? So at least so we can discuss it together, no? So hello Doc Annie, so on your end, no, kasi si Jer nandun na siya dun sa tertiary level. Tama ba, Jer? Tertiary level ang Batangan General Hospital?
Tertiary.
Yes, so tertiary level. So before the tertiary level, no, so kayo Annie, no, so talagang literally frontliner na primary or actually primary secondary level already. Yung sa experience mo ba dun sa mga patients, I know that it's really different handling yung corporate cases mo before and then ngayon with the patients who should be isolated or those who need yung quarantine, no, away from their homes na hindi kakayanin. Pero so far ba with regards to what Jer has shared and regarding our topic for today, how else have you seen yung parang worsening ng situation or if there are any improvements as well?
Okay, sir. Just like to share po my insights regarding the politicization of healthcare. So, what I saw personally with what happened in our country was we're not ready talaga po for a pandemic. we had to rely on private sectors and also other sources to address this pandemic. Though not necessarily a negative thing, as I said earlier, it also showed us that we can do a multisectoral approach in addressing our problems. However, yun nga po, if this happens again, with the current status we're in, I doubt that we can deliver in the same way or we can address it na ganun pa rin pong paraan. We're not ready for a new one. At wala po din po tayong general guidelines in case a pandemic happens in our country also in the future. So I think we have to this is to be taken into consideration po in our future planning. So what happened with the COVID-19 situation here in the Philippines was way around that in our public hospitals. Well, here in NCR was they dedicated certain public hospitals as COVID referral centers here in Metro Manila. But this is in the premise that the private hospitals would help with the non-COVID cases. However, what happens yung issues po na raised by this is what happens to the other patients with other non-COVID diseases if we have taken already the public hospitals from them. What happens to those patients who are long-staying patients in these hospitals who cannot be discharged or cannot be transferred to other institutions? Also, I would like to highlight that these referral centers that they tapped public hospitals, which means that they already have limited resources to start with, and dedicating almost most of their resources to COVID-related cases. What will happen also to our patients who cannot afford private institutions that they would be referred to? And also those who need regular procedures, for example, hemodialysis, etc. How can we maintain their state of healthcare? Because these are very expensive procedures. How can we maintain their state of healthcare if there's the nearby public hospital isn't available to them anymore? Also, some of our patients, as we've seen in our experiences po with PGH, I think you would agree that a lot of our patients there would need specialized care. They would need specialists. Where would we transfer them? Which hospitals could cater to these patients who have very rare and specialized conditions? Kung tayo po nahihirapan na tayo dati sa PGH to address their needs and to give them proper health care, what more now? So I'm just raising some concerns that I found when COVID-19 started, and although not as personal, I think can be seen in our news and can be heard in reports, and also the experiences of some of my friends and batchmates. I would just like to state an example stated in the news that the Commission on Human Rights already called out certain hospitals for neglecting or not allowing patients to be admitted in their hospital. So for example po, dun sa Caloocan was one of the news articles that I read. Meron tayong buntis na pasyente, and hindi siya tinanggap ng mga hospitals doon sa Caloocan, and nagkaroon siya ng home birth, which is alam naman po natin is hindi ganun ka-ideal. Dahil nag-home birth siya, successful po ang birth, but the patient died usually due to acute blood loss because there's no healthcare worker available, and we don't have the facilities at home to address this kind of problem. So what happens now, since we're focusing on the COVID-19 only, we are denying people of their right to health right now. It's although it's a national emergency, it's still an outright refusal for medical services, which shouldn't have happened in the first place. So aside from that, since madaming effects, our health is not in a bubble. So madami siyang epekto, yung mga policies that we made. For example, the ECQ, when we had the ECQ, madaming na stranded. Who takes care of the health of these people? They're exposed to all the elements. They don't have access to proper, as Sir said kanina, no access to proper nutrition, so mas more na wala silang access to appropriate healthcare and medicines if they need to. So ito po yung mga, I think for me, these are the numbers that are not projected in our national situation. Every day we release demographics of our national situation in terms of COVID. However, there are a lot of stories behind those numbers. It's not just those who are affected with COVID who are affected in this national pandemic, in this national health emergency, and in the global pandemic. So additionally, I would just like to highlight yung recorded, for example, cases on violence against women and children during this, since the quarantine started in March. So they recorded, I think, around 3,600 since then. So these are people who also need medical attention, and the current policies of having the ECQ, linapit lang natin, kumbaga, ang problem kasi nung mangyari ng ECQ is linapit natin yung perpetrator doon sa mga women and children who have already been abused, and who are, tapos meron pang added stress ngayon of economic issues. So mas may nakita nga pong trend na madami tayong naging cases for violence against women and children. And these are just recorded cases. These are just the ones that reached our Philippine National Police. And lastly, the news about there are new 214,000 expected babies from unplanned pregnancies during this ECQ. So, and yung expected po is an increase of 5,000 teenage pregnancies for every 85,000 is expected as a result of the quarantine. So, this is, again, the numbers that we see every day in our news won't reflect the multitude of possible complications from pregnancy, and most importantly, the teenage pregnancy. And we don't see this in the national statistic. We'll just see them when it happens. Pag napanganak na yung mga babies next year. Kapag nanganak na yung mga mothers next year. So I think what I'm saying is when we focus too much on COVID, there's this naiiwanan natin, hindi natin napapansin yung other effects. Yes, we make health policies. Yes, we make policies to address the COVID situation. But we also have to understand what implications these have on our people outside the hospital setting, outside the clinic setting. So yun po yung aking mga insights on that.
Okay, thank you very much again. Just want to ask lang din, no, yung experience mo so far, since I think Jer mentioned kanina, it can actually worsen the disparity, especially sa provinces, no? I mean, relatively, parang baliktad. Dati, some people would expect better healthcare from the cities, tapos yung sa provinces, yung medyo nagkakakulang. Parang surprisingly, in many aspects, yung COVID-related healthcare and healthcare in general seems to have been reversed, na nagkaroon ng konting improvement in the provinces. And then yung cities, parang lalo nagkagulo, no? Especially ngayon, especially that COVID-19 tends to thrive in the urban setting where people tend to live in closer spaces. So, in your experience, yung mga patients na nakikita mo in your quarantine facility, do they, since we really know that our COVID-19 information are not based on demographics. We don't have any information whether these 1,100 cases yesterday are they mostly from the poorer sectors or the more affluent parts of our society. So sa experience nyo ba, meron ka bang napansin na gano'n?
Sa experience ko naman po, kasi medyo ano po, no, since I will just like to explain yung context, since nasa community facility po kami, we just get referrals na either contact, probable, confirmed na po. So we don't deal with patients who are non-COVID. So based, my experience would only be limited to that context. I think yung nakikita ko ngayon is, of course, meron nga pong mga growing disparities since una po, testing pa lang nahihirapan na yung mga those who are more are in the marginalized sectors of our country to get. Tapos, takot pa yung mga ibang tao to get tested because they know the stigma in the community. Although we can provide the isolation and the quarantine facility, pati yung pag-uwi po nila is going to be a problem. So they tend not to get tested. They tend not to go to the hospitals, to not go to primary facilities kasi they're afraid of its implications, especially in their home setting. Since nasa ECQ po tayo ngayon, most of our times or almost all our times nasa bahay. Kung mawala pa yon, or if kung nandun manggagaling yung mga future stressors because merong stigma from the community, it would be very hard for our patients.
Okay, sige. So, we continue our discussion. No? So, with both of you here, I just want to ask both of you, especially in our experience ngayon, dealing with COVID-19 in our specific work. I know that we're very focused no, sa COVID-19 ngayon in terms of our work, and how has it affected yung quality of life as a physician, no? Especially as yung na-mention earlier, di ba? Yung threat of being affected by COVID-19 yourself. No? It's really something that has affected a lot of physicians, of nurses, of a lot of other healthcare workers. So, kamusta naman in that sense? No? Yung syempre, one concern is that parang a lot of the policies are slanted towards the protection of as well as of healthcare workers. Na sadly, sometimes it's because of protocol, parang nagiging quote-unquote detrimental din siya in some respects to ideal patient care. That what we were taught in medical school to actually be empathetic to our patients, but because we are heightened yung anxiety natin with COVID-19, it's really forced us to think about our own safety and our own protection. Has there been any experience na parang gano'n na you had to consider more yung safety of the healthcare workers in our facilities as opposed to yung enabling talaga yung rights of our patients to seek better healthcare?
Let me just start by saying, this is me speaking on a personal level. Kasi for me, medyo maraming questions yun. Yung fear and anxiety ay lagi nandyan. Especially, siguro for us pediatricians. Kasi COVID-19 hits close to our hearts. The president of the Philippine Society, the late president of the Philippine Society, passed away due to COVID-19. A very nice woman. She's a very good leader. So it's really something personal for us, yung battle against this disease. Kasi it took away someone from us, in a way. So, aside from the fear and anxiety na constantly nandyan, yung fear na parang maano yung family mo, or ikaw, maging carrier ka, or whatever, nabago yung lifestyle na at least kami or ako, nagbago yung lifestyle kasi we had to adapt to yung best possible lifestyle para maiwasan yung transmission and pagiging carrier ng COVID-19. So how currently we work seven days straight. So we stay at the hospital for 7 days. So nandun kami 24/7, and then after that we're gonna get tested, and then uwi kami sa bahay, quarantine for 14 days. We rest for 3 weeks, and then kung negative ka, duty ulit. So physically, medyo exhausting siya. Well, depends kasi yung toxicity ng hospital, hindi mo siya ma-determine naman. Hindi mo siya ma-foresee. But having 7 days straight na duty is a bit parang, I can say toxic siya physically kasi never namin na-experience yan even during residency, internship, workshop. So, it takes a toll on us din in a way. Although, fortunately, ako so far, hindi pa naman ako nagkakaroon ng very tiring na duty. At the same time, what we did to address those issues ay nagkakaroon kami ng constant testing. Aside from shifting our schedule, we also do testing right after every duty. And since we have our machines na, hindi ko medyo ideal kasi after 1 or 2 days, we get the results na. But then, we're still required to do isolation for 14 days. So, meron kaming letter ng test results, and then we sign something na mag-isolate for 14 days. And at the same time, all of us na healthcare workers, we have, this is something new, we have monitoring. So, sinecheck yung temperature namin, yung symptoms namin, kung saan kami nagpunta, saang area kami ng hospital for ease of contact tracing. So medyo nitty-gritty, medyo nakakapagod siya. Pero I think it's helpful. Pero yun, parang nagbago lahat yung setup ng clinical experience. Hindi kasi siya yung usual na alam natin. And ito lang yung setup namin for now. Iba pa, I mean, like what I said kanina, nag-a-adapt kami. So from time to time, nagbabago yung rules. Depende sa kung ano yung makikita namin na mas maganda.
Sa akin, sir, I agree with Sir Jer po na yung nagbago talaga yung aming work style. So, hindi naman ako nag-hospital before this na regular duty. Pero ngayon po, may regular duty kami, and then, yun nga po, medyo may anxiety lagi na what if ngayon ka ma-infect or what if mahawa mo yung ibang tao. Another siguro na nangyari with this COVID pandemic dito sa Pilipinas, since we handle patients medyo closely and medyo mas mataas, medyo mas concentrated kumbaga yung cases na we handle. We were housed on hinaus na po kami in campus. So we had to of course leave our families for a while we serve in the community facility. Aside from that, I agree with Sir Jer na parang ngayon kasi meron na kaming symptoms checking. So parang you also treat yourself as a patient. You have to monitor yourself every time, which we don't usually do before. Yun po.
Yung isang question ko lang, yung kanina na mention ko earlier, do you think is there or should there be parang yung trade-off ba with regards to safeguarding yung welfare ng mga healthcare workers, yung protection, for example, yung sobrang stringent na restrictions that bawal muna mag-OPD or you have to pass through triage before you go to your ER, as well as yung no mindset that some doctors seem to have and some healthcare workers that you assume that everyone else already has COVID-19, no? So instead of yung parang meron ka na mindset that everyone is infected. So does that is it, in your experience, parang should there be a trade-off or meron bang parang effect, no, with regards to how we see patients these days compared to before, no? Kasi dati, syempre, very open tayo sa patients. We should be very accepting to whenever anyone else is in need. Pero ngayon kasi, because of a lot of protocols and the anxieties, it's actually leading people to either defer care or even transfer to other institutions na sometimes alam naman natin ideally kung kakayanin if the circumstances provide for it. However, because of a lot of problems in our healthcare system, may mga ganong situations.
Sir, for me, I think I agree naman na there are certain protocols to be followed. Especially since hindi lang naman healthcare workers yung pinoprotektahan natin with the protocols. We're also protecting the patients and their families kung nasasama if ever kapag nagbabantay or kasama sa check-up. So, but it's to an extent lang po. Hindi naman I think when I cited the example in Caloocan kanina, that's a life and death situation. Hindi na dapat natin yung mga ganong bagay, kailangan mabibigay natin yung healthcare attention na kailangan ng pasyente. So, yes, protocols are needed, but to a certain extent lang po.
Ako, I agree naman na in a way, pero i-focus ko lang yung comment ko dun sa sinabi mo na kailangan ba may trade-off in the sense na we have to consider everyone as positive. Lately kasi our mindset as clinicians is to think na there is no emergency in a pandemic. Yun yung laging rini-reiterate sa amin. There is no emergency in a pandemic. And lagi siyang rini-reiterate because we have to prioritize our safety as healthcare workers. For me, it does make sense to a certain extent kasi, again, gaya na sabi ko kanina with what I shared, kulang na yung manpower namin. And one more doctor or nurse or a healthcare worker na mag-turn out to be positive, maging carrier, would take a toll on our existing healthcare system. So we really have to be careful. Kailangan may balance between being too strict as to protect yourself and providing healthcare. In our situation though, I think it's not much of, hindi naman, I'm not boasting, pero kasi, like what I said, we have a separate hospital. We have an annex, actually, situated like certain kilometers away from our main hospital, also manned by doctors from our same department, na pag na-test ka at negative ka, dun ka. So, hindi kami nagkaka-problem, at least sa ngayon, on how to, like, yung parang tipong i-withhold mo yung service kasi ay baka COVID. Because we have the advantage of having machines, of having RT-PCR. Actually, in fact, we have gene expert nga, which can give you results as early as 45 minutes. So, hindi siya, I can say it's too ideal. But then again, we can, kasi parang for me, ang lumilitaw na issue lagi is we have to ask ourselves the question where to strike a balance between focusing on COVID-19 and providing other healthcare services. Yun yung medyo kailangan natin pagtuunan ng pansin on how we deal with this pandemic. Kasi hindi pwedeng hindi mo papansinin yung iba. So you have to make sure that other measures are being done so as to ensure the services are being given. On our part, I think hindi siya nagiging problem kasi, again, ewan ko for me, I can say na health is really political. I mean, if the right people are in power or if the LGUs or what have the right political will to do certain things to certain extent, masusolusyonan yung problems. So, dun lang siguro nagkakaroon, kaya siguro meron tayong discrepancy sa experiences because of things like this, no? Kasi ang hirap mag-comment about the healthcare system in general kasi magkakaiba tayo ng experiences, magkakaiba tayo technical system because of the evolutionized I don't know, healthcare system. So parang, for me, ang take home ko lang, ang insight ko, talagang health is political. If you want to prioritize health, you can always prioritize health. Pero syempre, meron din certain advantages. Yung iba-ibang regions, like siguro for us, we do have the budget for that, no? And I think hindi siya applicable to all provinces, to all LGUs. So I think that's where the national government should come in a way, but it's another topic, sorry.
Okay. Sige, so at this point, let me bring in first, no? So, thank you again to our speakers, Dr. Jer and Dr. Annie. So, I just want to bring in our reactor, no, for today. So, we have Dr. Gideon Lasco. So, he is, again, the co-author of or the main author, actually, of yung article natin on COVIDization of healthcare. He is also a graduate of the UP College of Medicine, of the Intermed program ng class 2010. And then he eventually did his master's and PhD in medical anthropology. He is a senior lecturer sa University of the Philippines, Diliman, and a research fellow at the Ateneo de Manila University. So thank you very much, Gideon, for accepting our invitation. And what can you say about so far our discussion regarding this COVIDization and the experience of our doctors?
Thank you, Josh, and thank you to both our speakers, Jer and Annie, for sharing your experiences. I would like to share some of my thoughts by starting with SARS. Nabanggit ni Dr. kanina. Can you see my slides? Okay, so as you can see, what we're seeing now are very similar to what we're seeing during SARS. Same reactions. People are afraid. There was quarantine actually done during SARS, although very limited. Some barangay lang yung na-quarantine. But even so, it elicited similar reactions as what we're seeing now. Stigma, discrimination. So as a starting point, I'd like to share this comic cartoon that was published way back in 2003. Marami na nakalimot sa atin sa nangyari sa SARS. But pandemics are, yes, they are political, but they're also social phenomena. Again, if you look at this newspaper clipping from the SARS period, at that time, same thing has happened. Non-SARS cases were sidelined in the attempt to respond to SARS, given that everyone's attention is on it. There's so much political pressure to deal with SARS patients. There's media attention. The president was so concerned. So the social phenomena, the nature of epidemics as social phenomena should make us review what has happened in the past and also interrogate what's happening now from this lens of COVIDization. One main difference with SARS is that nowadays we can actually test. That clinical, they were diagnosing SARS clinically. There was a five-member panel of doctors who decided based on history and chest X-ray kung SARS ba. But now we have tests, but that also leads us to have so many people testing positive for COVID, but they're not necessarily sick. Diba? They just have COVID. They might be able to infect people. They need to be isolated, but they're not necessarily sick. But then most people are still imposing the same approach to these people as if they're sick in our traditional framing of what sickness means. So I think that COVIDization, one way to respond to COVIDization is to recognize that we need to manage things differently. And so Doc Anning recounted yung Kanlungan Palma, and it's a very important place for me dahil doon kami nagtuturo in UP Diliman, and I am really proud of everyone involved in these isolation areas. Now, Doc Annie mentioned TB is still here. Yes, very much so. Sabi ni Doc Jer, there's chemotherapy, everything is still needed to continue. And nung nag-uumpisa pa lang yung pandemic, and even now, people are saying that, oh, COVID, hindi lang naman yun namamatay as compared to tuberculosis. And they use this to diminish or to say that we're overestimating and overreacting to COVID. I think that's the wrong message. But denying that messaging is not to say that we should also ignore the other diseases that are going on. So we have so many questions. How do we manage COVID? How do we manage COVID on top of other illnesses? Doc Annie mentioned that. But at the same time, also, how do we manage other illnesses now that are not COVID? Uh, Given that everything is now is viewed from the lens of COVID, including people dying, how do we diagnose? And makikita nga natin na ganun ka consequential yung testing and contact tracing because without both, we're really still partly blind in terms of our response. Now, we also heard from our speakers their lived experiences of COVID, how they're personally frustrated. And I would also like to add that many healthcare workers are just as afraid as patients of having COVID. We have elderly healthcare workers as well. They don't want to infect their family members. They're human beings too, and they're equally concerned about this virus. So some of them are also deciding not to open their clinics out of their own concern for their safety. And we need to recognize that as well. Of course, as Doc Annie pointed out, there's increased attention to frontliners, and that's very welcome, including para finally people are saying that we need PPEs. But even before COVID-19, we actually needed these PPEs. In my own medicine class of 2010, some of my classmates had acquired tuberculosis while being a clerk or intern. So we acquire diseases. That's part of the occupational hazard of medicine. But with PPEs, we can mitigate that. To add to the opportunities that are seen now, there's also the shift to telemedicine that can also be a source of opportunities for new forms of healthcare. However, there are financial vulnerabilities also. There are hospitals closing. Again, this covidization nga of healthcare is channeling efforts towards COVID to the detriment of other aspects of healthcare. So dentists are especially afraid, given that it's a very high contact, high risk practice, and also rehab medicine. There are many forms of medicine that are being sidelined. There are many people who are employed in these branches of medicine. So when we think of healthcare workers, we also need to think of them. And as both of our speakers pointed out, there's shift in resources. Even PhilHealth is saying that they're running out of money. So what does it mean for other kinds of health? So we see people speaking of increasing health capacity, but they're actually referring to COVID capacity. We're not measuring the capacity of healthcare services. I like what Annie mentioned about teenage pregnancy and many other health concerns, reproductive health. All of these have to be taken into account. So this very illustrative and harrowing account of a woman being rejected by hospitals speaks of how the supply side has really been hindered. And being a pediatrician, Doctor, we heard from Doctor about how pediatric services have been undermined. Even though I'm also glad he talked about best practices, and that's one of the lessons we learn here is we can learn from each other. There are many LGUs that are stepping up. So that's one lesson that we can take away is that we really need to collect these lessons and discuss how they can be applied and to which contexts they can be applied. However, what about the demand side or the patient's perspective? Even if we have provided them with non-COVID hospitals, even though we've stepped up to cater to them, they might still be afraid to go. So the hospital itself has been seen as a hazardous place in the public imagination. So we need to communicate to our patients to reassure them that the risks are being mitigated. There have been measures to prevent. So that's another very important angle to this whole discussion. What about the patients? What do they feel? Will a mother take her daughter to the clinic given that they're still afraid? Also, as part of what we're seeing as covidization, we're also seeing that beyond healthcare treatment, there's also an undermining of other aspects of health, including promotive and preventive health. Policies like forbidding senior citizens to exercise outdoors is also part of what's going on, given that these preventive measures could have also very significant health outcomes, health benefits. And the problem is, and this applies to all kinds of policies that we're seeing now, it's a one size fits all thinking. The assumption that a policy in Makati is applicable to Siargao or to Palawan. These are very different contexts, but it takes more effort to have a customized, tailor fit policy making that's iterative and also localized. But what we're seeing now is mostly totalizing and top down policies. And we can challenge that as advocates of health, uh, community voices. We can assert that we need to have tailored policies. And now, moving beyond the healthcare system itself, uh, we also see how the social determinants of health are being undermined by the pandemic. So, kinuwento ni Dr. Stories like of kanin at bagoong lang yung kinakain ng iba mga bata, pamilya. These are harrowing. This is very unfortunate, and they're complicating already dire nutrition statistics for our country. We have 30% stunting. So we might even see this increase now. So we cannot say that the economy and public health are two different domains that are being pit against each other. In fact, the economy is also a public health issue because if we undermine economy, we also undermine public health. So the challenge is really to come up with measures that allow for both to thrive. So anyway, this is just a reaction, and more important, I think, is to hear from our listeners and also from our speakers. But in conclusion, I think we really need to document lived experiences of our healthcare workers, including what we've heard today. We can learn from their best practices as well as past epidemics. So in the future, hopefully, this pandemic will also be a teaching experience for future generations. We have to be mindful that the goal is really healthcare for all, not just COVID care. So when we see this bulletin, and maybe in a while we'll see it again, the question is what is not being counted? When we look at this number of cases, who else are actually affected by the pandemic? Can we say that when we look at 30,682, Coco Pimentel is part of that number, but I'm sure his experience is much lighter than the one stranded in the airport or the one stranded in the bus terminal, even though that person doesn't have COVID. So his whole family is not part of this 30,000, and yet they are suffering from the pandemic. And we need to measure them as well and render visible their narratives, their stories, their accounts. So again, and I really hope that we are able to work together to assert this through all our respective disciplines. We need to assert that the goal is healthcare for all and not just COVID care. Thank you for having me this afternoon, and I look forward to the discussion.
Yan. So I remember lang when we were first making this article, no, we talked about that, we have to, any talk of a new normal really has to be about yung really fixing yung level of our healthcare system, because it's really about health for all after all. It's not just about the care for COVID-19. Pero since then, since June started, we've seen quite a few changes. We've seen, surprisingly, a lot of new elements with regards to how we look at COVID-19. Increasingly, the COVIDization seems to be um, affecting more and more levels of governance and even more and more outlooks of again, the focus is on the economy. There seems to be a building dichotomy between what is being done economically and what is being done public health wise, and then at the same time, the governance is somewhat shifting, especially with regards to blame. That the blame has been shifting from um, the instead of blame. For example, we've seen it in provinces like Samar and Leyte, where in Region 8, the numbers of COVID-19 have been increasing, and the blame, surprisingly, has been shifted not just to the people, like what is usually done by our government officials, but the blame is actually being put on the laboratories. There's actually been blame on they cast doubt on the integrity of not just the healthcare system but even also the testing for COVID-19. Um, it's just remarkable lang, these developments, and then, of course we see again with the shift in Cebu that there are more and more cases again, that the epicenter seems to be shifting, but also the framework in terms of how COVID-19 should be approached is also parang remarkably changing. And, would you add anything to our analysis regarding COVIDization, given all of this?
Well, of course, definitely the gap that I see now in our response definitely has to do with the consultative nature of policies. And even among our friends in DOH, they express frustration that their own uh, attempts to have certain policies is not being reflected in the final result. So I think part of the challenge has to do with their own, like, how do we build enough demand and enough civil society voice to challenge the way that the government is responding, and bakit na-exclude yung mga ganitong measures.
Okay, so thank you very much, Gideon, for your reaction to our speakers. And since we have a few more minutes, maybe we can go look at the questions. Hopefully, Gideon, if you could stay,
Yes, of course.
if you have
Yes.
any comments for questions. All right.
Yes.
So let's bring back Chair and Dakaani. Okay, and then let's look at our few questions for today. Okay. Okay, so from Giselle, no? So Giselle is a master's student in Japan, no? So she's thanking us for the webinar, and she just wants to ask, no? So gusto daw po niyang tanungin, sa inyong palagay, ano po dapat mas unahin para ma-improve yung responses sa healthcare issues sa pandemic, considering yung devolution. I think Jerna mentioned mo na earlier na yung devolution. But with regards to the human resources for healthcare, medicines, healthcare support, transportation, or finances, is there anything specific na dapat mas unahin given nga yung devolution natin? Jer, sige, you can start muna the discussion. Sige, nakita ba yung question? Sige, anyone, either kung hindi pa ready si Jer, kahit si Dakaani muna, pwedeng pa down na lang muna yung question para mawala.
So I think personally, based on my experience po as a community isolation unit physician, I think what I learned from this experience is we should always have, I think we should always engage yung community po. Not just for the COVID-19 response, but also to other diseases present in our country, and maybe in the future when we need it when there's if there's and when there's another pandemic that will come. So um yung notion po kasi ngayon, based on my observation, is a lot of the resources were put in the hospitals to put for the recovery of the patients. But I think what we tend to forget is that the hospital should be the last line. Our first line will always be our community setting. So this is where I think the focus and resources should be given. We have to strengthen the capacities of our communities. And also, as preventive measures, it is in the communities that we can engage them in the prevention of spread of infection and to deal with health concerns that can be managed in the community level. So yun po yung aking observation for ano.
Okay, thank you, Annie.
I can add.
Sige, Jer? Yes,
Or,
Gideon. Sige pa.
Okay. The barangay health workers, of course, across the country, we've seen how they've been helping with different health needs. And in other countries, like even Bangladesh, they have successfully mobilized their community health workers to respond to tuberculosis. They were involved in even treatment of tuberculosis. So we have resources. In terms of human resources, there are untapped resources. Can you imagine all these barangay officials who took part in checkpoints na in the end, hindi naman kailangan talaga yung ganong klase ng response? So it's also a challenge of mobilizing the local communities in a way that actually makes sense in terms of public health perspective. Kasi hindi kulang eh. We have people, but they're not being channeled and used properly. They're not being informed about their role. So I agree. We really need to involve the community if we're not to be tied down into just one thing. Kasi parang ang nangyayari ngayon, the reason why also there's covidization is because people think there's not enough human resources to accommodate other things. So sacrifice na lang muna sila. Maybe we can look at dengue later because everyone is minding the business of COVID-19. But in fact, with proper leadership and proper mobilization of these resources, we can actually respond to all of these needs. They don't need to be a dichotomy kasi pwede naman silang gawin ng magkakasabay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as mentioned before, no, so the community health workers, they're the real frontline. Diba? Sila naman talaga yung tunay na frontline. It's not really those in the ER, the siguro secondary frontline lang. And then yung nasa hospitals and those who are actually managing the positive COVID-19 patients, they're already at the end of, so para medyo nasa sila yung final line of defense against COVID-19. So, Jer, may ma-add ka ba dun sa kanina na question?
Siguro ma-add ko lang I think sa level ng LGUs or hospitals in general din siguro, yung constant assessment of the situation. Kasi you can always say yung good ideas about how to handle this pandemic. But at the end of the day, iba-iba kasi din yung situations per region, per province. We have different resources as well. So might as well have constant assessment on the current situation and look at your current resources on how you can handle it. Like in our case, there was a time na hindi community transmission ang problem namin. Our problem was actually transmission within the hospital. So we focused on that. Parang ganun. At the same time, I think yung adaptability din, no, ng LGUs or any healthcare institution in general. Kasi hindi tayo pwedeng, I think hindi ideal mag-stick sa isang protocol in facing something na yung knowledge natin about it constantly changes. So we have to be adaptive and aggressive in the sense na dapat lagi tayong nasa tip of our toes. We have to be aggressive in terms of knowing about the enemy, about the disease, and finding ways on how to address problems na mabibring niya to us. Ayun.
Okay, sige. Thank you very much for for answering the question ni Giselle. No? So, I'll read out na lang yung next question from Dr. Ravioli Casitran. So, she's saying, salute to these young doctor frontliners. With much difficulties and limited resources, you were able to deliver services. So, her question, were you able to express to our health authorities, whether local or national, any difficulties or hardships that you encountered in the response so that the guidelines and protocols would be more appropriate and more expedient and actually supportive of our frontline healthcare workers? So, in your practice, aside from the patients, have there been any opportunities for you to discuss with health authorities? I think there's a local government or any with regards to those supervising the quarantine facility, the local government of Quezon City as well. And Gideon, maybe if you've done any work with regards to if there are any assistance that the national government or any other government agency is, or anyone who is creating guidelines or protocols.
Sir, for me, I don't know sa administrative level if they how they give their feedback. Although for us who are attending physicians, we're being monitored and we have contact din po with DOH in terms of the current situation of our patients, etc. We also forward some of our concerns to them.
Sa amin naman, actually, our hospital administration is in works closely with the local government. In fact, the local government has been very, very open to suggestions and very supportive financially. So, hindi na umabot sa point na kailangan pang ipaalam sa governor or whatever because they already know the problems we face. I think it's a good thing na very proactive sa ganung level.
Okay. Okay, Gideon, do you have any?
Well, in fairness to DOH, they conducted some virtual consultations with social scientists, and I was able to attend a couple of those. So we were able to give feedback. For example, we really don't like the idea of social distancing, and in terms of messaging, it's better to say physical distancing, among other things. And then we were able to give the feedback na parang yung ibang mga policies don't really account for the realities on the ground, especially among urban poor communities. So there are some, pero again, it's one thing to consult the community and frontliners, but it's another thing to actually implement these policies. So the challenge is how to make sure that these feedback would actually not just reach them, but also be factored in when they make policies.
All right. So, just to add to that question, Gideon, sorry, there's a question lang regarding if there are any sociologists or anthropologists on the IATF daw po. With regards to social science in the COVID-19 response.
Well, I really doubt.
Yeah. So, there's a comment lang from Marisa of Paranaque. So, saludo daw po sa lahat ng mga doktor at health workers na biktima ng kapabayan at kapalpakan ng gobyerno at IATF. So, dapat binubuhusan ng pondo sa healthcare at hindi yung kung ano-ano at pakakinukurakot pa. So, hindi siguro mag-iisip na umalis ang mga health workers, lalo na yung mga nurses, kung protektado kayo at maayos ang sahod at work areas. So, mabuhay po kayo. Okay. And then another barangay health worker from Paranaque mentioned si Ellen. Sabi niya, alam ba ng gobyerno na mas maraming positive ay asymptomatic din daw, gaya ng banggit nyo. So nakakatakot daw kasi paano lang daw kung yung natetest ay yung mga symptomatic. So bakit ba raw hindi magawa yung mass testing ng gobyerno para daw kasi nasa hukay daw ang isang paa. So as you mentioned earlier, notice the COVID-19 response is healthcare in general is political, and it seems that even the COVID-19 response is, in some respects, very political as well. So the same might apply to testing. So just an additional part, no? So the Coalition for People's Right to Health is actually one in supporting the call for free mass testing now. So I just want to get any comments from our speakers regarding how mass testing is being done. Kasi I'm sure you've mentioned some areas are more lucky than others. So any comments lang po?
I would like to interpolate by asking also our two speakers.
Yes.
Are you hearing any reports of people who don't want to be tested
Tested,
because over fear that parang baka i-quarantine sila sa isang miserableng lugar? So are we beginning to hear issues around fear of testing as well? So I just want to add that, and maybe both our speakers can also respond.
With regard with the fear of testing, sir, I personally don't have any experience regarding that. Actually, with my experience, mas gusto nga ng mga tao na matest sila. However, based from the accounts of some colleagues, they have shared that merong mga ayaw magpa-test kasi hindi nila alam, parang kumbaga it's gonna be more complicated for them if they test out positive. So mas takot sila, mas gusto nila na hindi na lang nila alam as long as they're asymptomatic. Kesa they go through the process kung maging symptomatic po sila.
On my experience, same with yung initial comment ni Doc Annie. Baligtad, actually, they wanted to get tested. And sa experience namin kasi sa pedia, I don't know about the other hospitals, pero syempre when a pediatric patient is admitted, hindi lang siya ma-admit, even the caregiver. So most of the time, parents. So even the parents are actually being tested in our hospital. So most of the time actually, even nung pasimula pa lang, mas gusto na nilang natitest because of the fear of transmitting it niya to other relatives. As regards to yung question kanina regarding mass testing, I don't know about the national level kung kaya talaga natin. But based on our experience, it works. When we had a surge in number of healthcare workers having COVID-19, we did mass testing. So everyone was tested. Yun nga, gaya sabi ko, hanggang sa, including yung mga non-healthcare workers like welders, ganyan, carpenters, na-test sila lahat. And nakatulong siya in contact tracing, in isolation, and eventually, bumaba yung cases namin ng healthcare workers. I think nag-zero na nga. So, I think it helps naman to a certain extent. I just don't know if it is possible in the national level, but in our experience, it can help. It can actually help.
Right. Sige. Gideon, do you want to ask anything else to our speakers before I ask the last question?
Sige. Regarding stigma and discrimination, diba, parang that's another, you shared about your own frustration as healthcare workers. But did you also experience being the object of stigma and discrimination as healthcare workers?
Sige, sir. I think personally, I don't have, again, any experience with being discriminated, being a healthcare worker. Actually, pero I think that's also because we're housed in campus, where we go to work within the campus. We don't have much contact outside. So I think in a way that also prevented us from having such experiences. In terms of our families, with regards to my colleagues, I think most of our families are very supportive of our decision to go and serve during this pandemic. So wala naman po kaming naririnig na negative comments regarding that at home.
Ako din personally, never. I think never naman. Because, siguro, kasi I live in Pampanga, but I work in Bataan. So pag umuwi ako ng Pampanga sa bahay, I have to isolate for 14 days. Diba? So hindi rin ako nakikita ng mga tao. At the same time, people who live near us, they know na we follow certain protocols na kailangan isolation after 14 days. And may benefit din kasi kami ng testing. So we get tested right after our duties. So kahit alam na namin negative kami, we still isolate. So medyo very OA na yung aming protocol. But then, I mean, it's helpful. Pero in terms of other healthcare workers, we have a nurse from PGH. When I was still a resident in PGH, we have a nurse. He was featured in a news program, I think, no? Kasi sa condo unit nila in Manila, na-discriminate siya. I mean, I think pinatawag yung guard sa condo, pinapaalis sila or something. But then, legally yata, nag-file sila ng case. So, I think sa certain areas, certain healthcare workers, nakaka-experience pa din. Hindi na siguro yun maalis.
Okay, so with that, we'll just segue into our last question, which is actually also connected to one of the questions that was mentioned here. So now moving forward, so we're on 101 days since on community quarantine. So hindi pa natin nakakamit, no, yung talagang pag-stem natin sa COVID-19. Although as mentioned nga earlier in the article, as well as ni Gideon earlier, what we really need is not just COVID-19 care for all, but really healthcare for all. So as we move towards that and what we call the new normal, what are your thoughts, no, regarding yung new normal? How should it be and how will it look like? Since a lot are saying then, connected to the question, is it more of telemedicine or should it be more geared towards increasing healthcare access for everyone, improving our healthcare system, na yun nga, health for all talaga. It's not just about making our healthcare and all our other facilities be adapted to infectious diseases, but generally improving the overall healthcare of our society. So, parang last words na din po yun.
I think for me po, as I said earlier, in the aftermath of this pandemic, I would ideally the community would be strengthened. We should also be prepared for other possible pandemics kasi tulad nga po nitong COVID, hindi naman to mawawala lang ng basta-basta at posible pang magkaroon pa ng mga bagong infection in the future. So, kailangan po maging prepared tayo for that. I think in a national level, we should also continue and strengthen the multisectoral approach we already experienced during this quarantine and during this pandemic response. And also, lastly, I think we should review our policies, its effect on our people, those who are not just health-wise, but also in other aspects of their lives. So, yun po.
Okay, Roger?
I have one question. How to prepare for the new normal?
Pang-closing talaga.
I don't think the new normal will be coming in anytime soon. I mean, if it would depend on vaccines or whatever. I mean, based on our experiences with certain diseases, kahit sa pediatric population pala, yung mga vaccines ng measles, Hep B, it took us decades before those vaccines were, invented. So mukhang matatagalan pa kung ano man yung new. Actually, I still don't understand the concept of new normal. Pero how to prepare for what's coming or what's happening right now, I think we still need to be vigilant. I mean, as doctors, as healthcare workers, ayun ulit, be open to new knowledge, be aggressive in terms of managing and striking a balance between focusing sa COVID and providing services for non-COVID cases as well. Again, ayun, reiterate ko lang na health is political. So if we have to prioritize what needs to be prioritized. And I think we should focus on our people more than anything else. Hindi lang sa may COVID. So I think we should strike a balance dun sa provision ng lahat, even including human rights, kanya. Sorry, lumalabas na. Pero I think yep kasi. But ayun, for me, what we can do right now is, aside from being active as healthcare workers, is I think to communicate with our government, you know, kasi I think it's our responsibility to tell them what needs to be done. Kasi this is a medical concern, and there's no one more knowledgeable than us doctors in terms of this problem. So I think we should campaign for a more aggressive healthcare system, a more humane and just healthcare system, not only for those with COVID, but for everyone else.
Right. Thank you, Jer. Gideon, any last comments with regards to the new normal and how we'll actually change this COVIDization of healthcare, if it's actually a possibility?
I also think that we don't see the end yet of this, so we need to fight pandemic fatigue. So people, nung una, di ba, healthcare workers are frontliners, and dami nag-tweet about it. But now there's less attention to our healthcare workers. So we can easily fall into this fatigue of helping people, of being engaged. We cannot afford to do that. We should be here for the long term and be committed. This is really a marathon. This is not a sprint. So we need to fight pandemic fatigue. And even though it can be very frustrating at the national level na hindi pinapakinggan yung iba mga sinasabi natin, but let's not forget the crucial role that LGUs play. So I think Jer talked about it, that even though at the national level things can be challenging, let's not forget engaging with our local governments, making available our insights, our knowledge, our expertise, and also our resources to help build local responses, not just on health, but also revitalizing local economy, which is very important if we are to sustain beyond the pandemic.
All right. So with that, it's 4 o'clock, and we'd like to thank everyone, especially Dr. Annie, Dr. Jer, and Dr. Gideon, for sharing your time regarding itong tinatawag nating COVIDization ng Serbisyong Pangkalusugan. And at the end of the day, as we mentioned earlier, yung COVIDization of healthcare, at the end of the day, what we really need to do is to improve the overall health situation of our people in order to really address COVID-19 that goes beyond not just the medical, but also the physical, the societal, the mental as well, and the much larger social implications that we need to address in order to ensure that the right to health of every individual is taken care of. So again, thank you very much everyone sa mga nanonood sa Facebook at sa YouTube, at samahan nyo kami ulit sa susunod nating usapin tungkol sa Raising the Bar at ang sitwasyon natin sa COVID-19, which will take place next on June 30, which is next Tuesday, where we learn for what has been happening in COVID-19 as a response by other countries, including Taiwan, no? Which two of our speakers will be coming from. So maraming salamat po sa pag-attend. Salamat po sa ating speakers. At magandang hapon sa ating lahat. At manatiling malusog tayo panglaban po natin sa COVID-19 bilang isang malusog na lipunan. Salamat po. All right. Sige, thank you guys.
Kasi
Thank you.
Okay.